And now, the Android Basics segment. This is a segment where we discuss the things that power your device from behind the scenes. And now, here's this week's episode, Android Basics.
Now we turn to our Android Basics section, and after a bit of a hiatus, we are back looking at One UI settings, and John brings us the first part in a series on accessibility.
Welcome back to our series on Samsung's One UI. Today we're going to be discussing the all-important accessibility settings. And from the main settings page, what you're going to look for is
accessibility, vision, hearing, dexterity.
I'm going to open this.
Accessibility, navigate up, button.
And today we're just going to focus on mostly the visual settings, and we'll jump back into this for the next installment. But at the top here we have
accessibility, search settings, button.
the usual search button.
More options, button.
And of course at the top right, more options. I'm going to show you what's in here.
Pop-up window, add to home screen, in list.
The option to add an accessibility settings icon to your home screen for quick access.
More about accessibility.
And then this will take you to Samsung's website, where they will tell you their stance on accessibility, if you want to call it that.
More options, button.
And below this we have
Recommended for you, 5 accessibility functions in use.
And of course, depending on how many you have enabled, this is going to be different for you. But going in here,
Recommended for you, navigate up, button. Recommended for you. Functions you're using, heading. Touch and hold delay. Set touch and hold delay to default, button. Reduce animations. Turn off reduce animations, button.
so as you can see, this is just a quick way to see what you've enabled and disable it, I guess, in case it's causing issues on your phone. But I'm not going to go through this entire page. Like I said, it's going to be different for everybody. So backing out.
Accessibility. Recommended for you. 5 accessibility functions in use.
Next we have,
Vision enhancements.
and this is what we're going to be focusing on today, although we will continue the accessibility settings in the next installment. Opening this up, let's see what we have. There's actually a lot of stuff in here.
Vision enhancements. Navigate up, button.
What we have first at the top here is,
Display mode. Heading.
and there are 3 options from left to right that we can choose here.
Not selected. Default. Button. Not selected. High contrast. Button. Not selected. Large display. Button.
And I don't have any of these selected because I have customized my display settings how I like them, but if you just wanted a quick way to either restore defaults, set everything to high contrast, or enlarge everything on the display, this is where you would go to do that. Below this we have
Colors and clarity. Heading.
the colors and clarity section includes,
High contrast theme. None.
here's where you can go to change the theme to make it easier for you to see if you're low vision. Most of these settings are actually for low vision.
High contrast fonts.
Here's where you can toggle high contrast fonts on and off. What this will do is it puts if the text is black, it will put a white outline around the text so that if it's on a dark background, you could still read it. After this we have
High contrast keyboard. Works with Samsung keyboard only. Disabled.
as you heard, and that's why it's disabled, because Samsung keyboard is not my default. But here's where you can turn this on, and what it will do is, I don't know if it's yellow or white, but the keys are a very bright color, and then the letters on the keyboard are most likely black. And next,
Highlight buttons.
this is similar to high contrast text, but for buttons.
Relumino Outline.
Relumino Outline is a new feature. This was just added in One UI 6.1, I believe. I don't think it was even in One UI 6.0. But what this is, it's basically high contrast for everything. So even if you're watching a video, it will detect objects in that video and give them an outline. For example, if you're watching a football game, all the football players will have outlines around them, and the lines on the field will be brightened up. The field itself will be a little darker, so it adds high contrast to everything, which is actually a really nice feature. I don't know, it seems very advanced, so I don't know if it's hardware specific, if you need a certain processor to do this or not, but it does appear here on my S24 Ultra. I'll go in here to show you some of the options.
Relumino Outline. Navigate up. Button. See objects and images and videos more clearly with strong outlines. Adjust the color and thickness of the outlines to make them stand out. Relumino Outline Shortcut.
Of course, you can add it to an accessibility shortcut like any of these accessibility settings.
Off Relumino Outline Shortcut. Switch. Outline thickness. Decrease. Button. 0%. Outline thickness. Slider. Increase. Button. Selected. Radio button. Adaptive. Not selected. Radio button. Black.
And this adaptive and black and so on is where you can either have it choose the color of the outline based on the content to make it the most visible, or you can just have the outline always be a specific color if you set the color. Backing out of here.
Vision enhancements. Relumino Outline.
Next is,
Color inversion.
this is exactly what it sounds like. It just inverts all the colors, so white colors become black, black becomes white, and so on and so forth. So if there's a specific app that does not support dark mode and it's too bright, you can turn this on.
Color correction. Off.
Color correction, you can go in here and disable specific colors if you have a certain type of color blindness where you have difficulty distinguishing between certain colors. And then next we have,
Color filter. Off.
I'm going to go in here
Color filter. Navigate up. Button.
because I'm not entirely sure what this is,
Off color filter. Switch.
to be honest.
Add a color filter over the entire screen. This may help make text easier to read.
That's the description of it.
Color filter shortcut.
That's the shortcut.
Off color filter shortcut. Switch.
And then you can choose
Opacity. 25%. Opacity. Slider.
the opacity of it, how much you can see through this color filter or not.
Selected. Radio button. Blue.
And then here's the list where you can choose the color that you want the filter to be. Backing out.
Vision enhancements. Color filter. Off.
Next we have,
Reduce animations. Prevent some screen effects. Useful if you're sensitive to animation or screen movement. On. Switch.
so this is if you're sensitive to screen movement, or in my case, sensitive to sluggishness. So I have this enabled because it just makes your phone faster if you're not sitting there waiting for animations to happen. And next,
Reduce transparency and blur. Reduce visual effects on dialogues and menus to make them easier to see. On. Switch.
I think that's self-explanatory.
Extra dim.
Extra dim allows you to dim your screen even more than the phone normally lets you. This is mainly for if you're sensitive to light, but I think it's most often used just to help with battery life for those that are completely blind and don't want the screen to be lit up at all. Next we have
Size and zoom. Heading.
the size and zoom section.
Magnification.
Now magnification is For on-screen magnification, I'm going to go in here.
Magnification. Navigate up. Button. Magnification shortcut. Triple tap screen.
And as you can tell, I have my shortcut assigned to triple tap, and this is an additional shortcut you can assign magnification to other than the regular standard accessibility shortcuts. I'll give you pros and cons of this shortcut. When you have it set to triple tap, the magnification will actually magnify the point on the screen where you do the triple tap. So you don't have to worry about moving the magnification area to that point after you enable it. And you can also do a triple tap and hold and move your finger around the screen, and the magnification lens will follow your finger along the screen. So if you have just a specific line of text you want to try to read, you can triple tap at the beginning of that line of text, hold, and then just slide your finger along the text and read as you're moving. The downside to having triple tap as a shortcut is it makes your phone feel slower, because if you're a screen reader user, every time you double tap, it's waiting a split second to see, is this just a double tap or is this going to be a triple tap? So that delays the action of a double tap by a little bit. And similarly, even if you don't use a screen reader, every time you tap the screen is going to be waiting to see if it's just a tap or if you're going to continue tapping or not. So obviously it doesn't bother me too much, or I wouldn't have this shortcut enabled this way, but it's up to you whether you want to use that or not. And then some more settings we have here.
Magnification type. Full screen.
I have it set to full screen, but you can set it to partial screen, which looks like a floating lens on a specific area of the screen, which you can move around, you can adjust the size of. Or you can have this set to both, and there will be a toggle always at the bottom where you can switch between partial and full, but I always use full, so I have it set to full.
Keep magnification when switching apps in full screen view. On. Switch.
That's another setting.
Move with cursor while typing. Move the magnified area as you type. This isn't supported in all apps. On. Switch.
And then at the very bottom, there's just a description of magnification, which I'll let it read to you.
Use the magnification shortcut to turn screen zoom on or off. You'll see either a zoomed in area or an outline around the whole screen. If the whole screen has an outline around it, tap anywhere in the box to start zooming, or touch and hold to zoom temporarily. While zoomed in, you can pinch to adjust. Swipe with 2 fingers to scroll.
Now backing out.
Vision enhancements. Magnification.
Next we have
Magnifier.
And magnifier, not to be confused with magnification, is an app that uses the camera on your phone to magnify what's in the real world. So if you have a document you're trying to read, you can use this to replace what a physical magnifying glass would do. Of course, you could do a lot more with it. It will allow color filters, and you can adjust the zoom level, and basically the typical features you would find in a magnification app. And going in here, you can assign it to a specific accessibility shortcut if you want to. Next we have
Cursor thickness.
This is for adjusting the thickness of the typing cursor. So when your edit box is active, the cursor that shows where the text will be input, you can adjust the thickness of that cursor.
Pointer size and color.
And this will let you adjust the size and color of the mouse pointer if you have a mouse connected.
Font size and style.
I think that's pretty self-explanatory, so I won't go into that.
Screen zoom.
Now, screen zoom, also not to be confused with magnification, lets you permanently adjust the size of items on screen. This can also be found in display settings. And what this does is it just makes the items larger on your screen. So if you're the type to explore by touch, this could make it easier to find certain items. Of course, it will also make you have to scroll more because less items will be visible on the screen at once. But this is where you can go to tweak that if you want to see if that helps you. And the next heading in this section is
Spoken Assistance. Heading.
And below this,
Speak keyboard input allowed. Disabled while TalkBack is on. Disabled.
and that's exactly what it sounds like. And it's disappointing that it does not let you go in here if you have TalkBack enabled and set it up. It obviously won't work with TalkBack enabled, but I think a lot of people would use this feature if they could turn off TalkBack while the keyboard was on screen and just type and have the keyboard announce what keys are being pressed and what words are being typed. Similar to what people do with Chihuahua or CSR, where they can disable Browse by Touch while they're typing to make the typing experience much faster. So I think it's disappointing that we can't access this as TalkBack users easily. You'd have to have somebody set it up for you, basically. And then we have
Audio description. If available, automatically select the audio soundtrack with an audio description while watching videos on. Switch.
And I'm sure most of us know what audio description is, and this is the global setting for it. I'm assuming that app developers have to tie into this some way, so even if you go into an app and you have this switch on and audio descriptions are not automatically playing, I would not assume that that service doesn't support it or that app doesn't support it. But hopefully, if the developers are doing it right, it will automatically be on for you if you have this enabled. Next we have,
Bixby Vision for accessibility.
going in here,
Accessibility modes. Navigate up. Button.
Bixby Vision is similar to Lookout if you've ever used the Lookout app, and here are some of the modes.
Accessibility modes on. Switch. Scene describer. Capture a scene to hear a detailed description of it on. Switch. Object identifier. Point the camera at something to hear what it is on. Switch. Text reader. Point the camera at some text to hear it read out loud on. Switch. Color detector. Point the camera at an object to hear what color it is on. Switch.
And these are all modes that, if you have these switches enabled, will appear in the Bixby Vision app alongside the normal modes for sighted users. Next we have,
Voice feedback. Read the results of searches aloud on. Switch. Disabled.
and I'm going to double tap to show you why this is disabled,
Can't use voice feedback while TalkBack is on.
which makes sense because you're going to be using TalkBack to read that anyway.
Text-to-speech settings.
And this will just take you to the regular text-to-speech settings so you can adjust the text-to-speech engine and its settings for those search results. Below this,
Open Bixby Vision button.
we'll just take you to the Bixby Vision app. Backing out,
Vision enhancements. Bixby Vision for accessibility.
the last thing we have here,
Voice label. Write voice recordings to NFC tags to provide you with information when you're nearby. The tags are purchased separately and can be associated with objects or locations you use regularly.
so this seems like a very helpful feature, but it's not something I have any experience with. And this is all that's in the Vision Enhancements section, so backing out of this,
Accessibility. Vision enhancements.
and right below this, we have TalkBack.
TalkBack.
And if you go here,
TalkBack. Navigate up. Button.
here's the page where you can enable TalkBack.
TalkBack. Off TalkBack. Switch.
This is the switch where you will turn TalkBack on or off. Of course, you can also assign it to a shortcut, which is what the next item is,
TalkBack shortcut.
just to show you your options.
TalkBack shortcut. Navigate up. Button. Select actions you can use to start or stop using TalkBack.
And the choices we have here are,
Not checked. Checkbox. Use accessibility gesture. To start or stop TalkBack, swipe up from the bottom of the screen with 3 fingers.
and of course we'll touch on this later, but this could also be an accessibility button if you have that set up, which we'll cover in advanced accessibility features later,
Accessibility button settings. Button.
which you could also access here. The next option is,
Checked. Checkbox. Press side and volume up buttons.
and this is Samsung's accessibility shortcut that they've added in addition to the accessibility shortcuts that come with stock Android.
Not checked. Checkbox. Press and hold volume up and down buttons for 3 seconds.
And this is, of course, the most used shortcut for TalkBack. And that brings us to the end of what we're going to be covering today. In the next installment, we will continue accessibility settings. For now, I will send it back to the crew for further discussion.
Anyone want to start with any comments or questions? I've got some, but
Well, this is a very important part because for those of us who are blind or anyone having any accessibility problems, this is a place to get familiarized with. And so thanks, John, for starting us on this one. It's a very important segment of the phone, just like a sighted person may find the camera probably the most important part. For me, though, this segment is the most important part of my phone because without it, guess what? I'm in dark waters. So thank you so much. And there's so much to be covered here. I don't even know where to get started, John, to be honest.
I quite like the sound of that. It doesn't benefit me particularly, but that new video thing where you can, have sports lines blown up and, well, not blown up, but contrasted out. So you can see borders around players and goal lines. That all, given how many fine margins you get in video replays in sport, it sounds like features that people without vision impairments might want to turn on.
Yeah, I really like it. So it works system wide. I mentioned videos because that kind of proves, like, if it'll work in a video with real time, it works anywhere. But yeah, it works for everything, like images that you might be scrolling through, just basic, the UI in general. It just makes everything, it outlines everything. It makes it much easier to see if you're low vision.
And I wasn't paying proper attention, but I don't think I heard there was a toggle switch for it. Did I just miss it? Or is it not? Does it not quite work like that?
There is a toggle switch for it, and you can also assign it to a shortcut. I just may have skipped over it.
Okay. Yeah, and as I say, I was doing something else as well. So the accessibility shortcut, you showed us with TalkBack that you had quite a few options, and here's where I've got a question for Warren, actually. So obviously we have users with varying degrees of confidence with the touchscreen, perhaps various dexterity, and while some might even be using it under duress or sufferance. So what they really might want is hardware buttons to enable accessibility features and not that virtual button. And I see that Samsung has 2 hardware enabled accessibility buttons, so you can have TalkBack and G-Show without, as I say, needing a touchscreen button. Warren, how many accessibility hardware options does the Pixel have?
Well, this has always been a plus for Samsung, and it's one of the goodies that we find if you're using Samsung device, for example. It makes it possible for you to have 2 screen readers without going in there to turn off the other one and whatever. Just use whatever the key combination and just simply invoke the other one. So I really like that about Samsung, to be honest.
So one word answer then, Warren. Samsung has 2 options. Pixel has...
Well, we know that the Pixel
There
only
you go.
It's Sally boy.
I'm gonna jump in to defend Pixel for slightly here.
Thank
so
you.
the answer is 1. It only has
One.
1. But I will say
Really
this.
to the feet.
I will say this. That shortcut is much faster on a Pixel than it is on a Samsung phone. You have to press and hold the buttons for like 1 full second on a Pixel, whereas, and I don't know why Samsung has it this way, but you have to press it for and hold for 3 seconds when you're pressing both volume keys. And I'm not a fan of it. Like, I understand why they might want it to be that long during setup, so it's not accidentally triggered, but for like regular use of triggering the shortcut, I think it takes too long.
But if you're someone who really needs a hardware accessibility second option, and obviously the Pixels don't give that to you, maybe that's a price you just pay. Isn't
No, I understand, and there's no question about it. I'm not defending that, but I think it's a very beautiful thing on the part of Samsung for giving us two of those. And maybe one of these days we could also have that in Google. But for now, the high points go to Samsung, and I love Samsung. Don't get me wrong. I love the device.
Yeah, and there's something that John should know, which is if you don't want to wait, you can just use the volume plus power, which is quicker if we compare it to the holding of the volume keys on Pixels. So this doesn't work. I mean, your excuse doesn't work.
Yeah, but the Pixel doesn't allow you to use power and volume.
Yeah, I know. What I was
accessibility.
saying is that on Samsung, if you don't want to wait, you just press or you use the volume up power plus power shortcut, which will be so fast.
It is
Yeah.
fast, and I use it all the time.
That's
I love
the
it. That's
one I
my
use
main
too, but-
shortcut. I'm just saying, Pixel only does one shortcut, but the shortcut it does right. That's all I'm saying.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't do it as well as Samsung does its other shortcut, does it? So Pixel loses out to Samsung on its best shortcut, and it loses out again because it's only got one.
Yeah, so let's say, okay, Samsung wins this.
It's getting
match.
trounced, isn't it?
This much.
Yeah.
But, you know.
But I shall not seek to influence listeners any further. You can make your own choice about phones.
Yeah, well, it's a good device. It's just that some belly achers out there tend to give Samsung a hard time, but I'm not in that camp. There are things that Samsung actually has done right, and I've always been a staunch Samsung guy. You know, in the early days, it just was maybe like 9 or so years ago that I jumped ship. But prior, I was a Samsung guy all the way, and you can't say Samsung is a bad device. I love it. It's a good device.
We'll be highlighting more areas in accessibility where Samsung trounces Pixels in future episodes. I had a question as well about that that speak aloud or read aloud keyboard thing you couldn't get into with TalkBack because it showed it was disabled. Will it work if you use G-Show?
It does work if you use G-Show or CSR. I haven't tried it with Prudence. I'm assuming it would also work with that. But yeah, so you can get in there and you can enable it. But I haven't actually tried to use it with G-Show. Kreen's tried it, so maybe she can tell us what it's like.
Yeah, actually, if you use the TalkBack spoofer service that we covered before, it won't work because it will consider that TalkBack is running. So you will have the same things or the same message that you hear when TalkBack is running, and you will not be able to activate it. However, if you use the main service of G-Show or the G-Show Lite, there will be no problem. You can just activate it. You can change the settings, everything. But if you want to use it, or if you are planning to use it with Browse by Touch enabled, you should pay attention that sometimes there may be a conflict between the feature itself and G-Show announcing the letters. Well, I haven't noticed that. Actually, I did a very short test, but what I have noticed that G-Show is faster and it will just announce the letters. But if you delete, you will hear the deleted character using the feature itself. So it's better if you are planning to use the keyboard with Browse by Touch enabled, just ignore the feature, don't use it. But if you are planning to use the feature with Browse by Touch suspended, it will work. It will announce the letters. But until this moment, I can say that if you are able to use Gboard old version, it's better to use it because it's still faster. So Samsung's announcing of characters while Browse by Touch is suspended is slower than how Jishua announces the characters when browse attach is suspended. Of course, if you're using the old Gboard, because with the new Gboards, this is not possible.
Interesting. And John, have you ever tried seeing if you can access the settings by sort of turning TalkBack off, tapping the button, and then turning TalkBack back on again? Will that work if you want to set it up?
Yeah, it will. So there's a couple ways you can do it. That's the first way. So you just go into the settings, find where it is on the screen, turn off TalkBack with your accessibility shortcut, then tap that part of the screen. It'll take you in there, and you'll be in the settings. Then you'll have to do that again to turn the switch on. But from that point on, you can adjust all of the settings from within that page using TalkBack. Another way you could turn it on if you don't really care about messing with the settings is you could just go to the advanced accessibility settings, go to the accessibility shortcuts, and assign the read aloud typing to one of the shortcuts. Then you could turn it on with that shortcut and it will just stay on from that point on. And you could just unassign it from the shortcut if you were using that shortcut for something else. But then the way you would use it practically after you have it enabled in the settings set how you want is, and this is for people who want something similar to direct touch typing while using TalkBack, which direct touch typing is something from VoiceOver. It's something a lot of people ask us about when they move over to Android, and Android does not have an equivalent. But this is the closest way to get it with TalkBack. And what you'd have to do is, once you have it set up and enabled, you would just have to use your shortcut to turn TalkBack off anytime you're typing, and then you can interact with the screen just as fast as a sighted person would, and the TTS will read aloud characters and words depending on what your settings are for you. So I'm horrible at this sort of typing. I just use the Braille keyboard, but I think a lot of people would like to do it this way.
I think that what will happen is that next week we're going to have John do this as a tip of the week, because it's a good idea if you want to be able to just interact directly with the keyboard without the screen reader. Of course, you have to kind of have an idea of the keyboard layout and all of that in order to be able to not, make a lot of mistakes or whatever, because you're not going to be like, say, I'm just going to be gliding like you would while using TalkBack or whatever. It's a good idea if you know exactly where the keys are or kind of have an idea of where they are. Like you said, John, this is like an equivalent to the Fruitvale way of doing the direct typing. So I like the whole idea. We have this, and so anyone who wants to do that would be able to try it and see if they like it or not. And of course, it's only with the Samsung keyboard, as you've indicated.
John, I have a question for you, since you use Samsung keyboard more than I do. Well, how can you, or is it possible to long press or tap and hold on a key to be able to see the symbols or the alternative characters?
Not that I know of, but I don't use it much either. I just to try this is the only reason I turned it on. I normally use Gboard as well.
I tried it. It seems not working, but I don't want, because I'm usually not giving Samsung stuff the enough chance. So I was saying maybe I'm just missing something or something.
Karen girl, you're a mystery sometimes to me because you love your Samsung stuff, and yet in the same breath, there's stuff that you don't care about. I find that rather very fascinating.
Yeah, I will let you know what's the thing. Actually, I like hardware, but I don't like the software. I don't like the duplication. Okay, we have Gboard, we have Samsung Keyboard, we have Google Assistant, we have Bixby, we have Keep Notes, we have Samsung Notes, and that. So it's, I hate this duplication, and I hate that they try always to copy Google stuff, and usually they come with inferior services. So yeah, why to bother?
So I kind of have been wishing for a Samsung keyboard. I wish we had it on the Play Store so anyone can install it if they wanted to. And I do want to mention that I think that earlier on, before the newer versions of the Samsung keyboard, I like the older ones better. They were very responsive and all of that. I mean, I'm not saying that this is not responsive, and I'd always pined away for a Samsung keyboard. And now that I have a Samsung phone, more than Samsung phone, I'm not quite, impressed with the keyboard like I used to.
I mean, I don't think I prefer the app overall, but the one thing I do like about one of the Samsung apps is that on the phone app, the keypad is a tab and not a silly button hiding somewhere, sort of above the tabs on the right-hand side. Like, why doesn't Google just make the keypad a tab? That would be so much easier.
Well, ACR does it better here. ACR is the third-party phone app. Actually,
Yeah.
you have the choice. You have the choice to have it appear when you just open the phone app. It will open the dialer by default. Also, you can long press the icon and then tap the dialer. So I think here ACR beats them together. Beats them both actually.
Yeah, I quite like ACR for some of its other stuff, like the recording and things like that. I don't know. I just think Samsung kind of keeps it simple. Keypad.
Yeah, ACR is a great dealer. Thanks to
Yeah.
Karine, I'm a full-time user now.
I like ACR.
Wow.
Like, remember last year you were telling me about it, and I downloaded and started using it.
Yeah, I'm glad that I was able to convert several people to use ACR, and yeah, it's a great one.
Yeah.
Well, I think though that Google could actually have made the keypad as a tab. I mean, we've got 4 tabs at the bottom. I mean, a lot of apps have 5 tabs,
Exactly.
5 tabs. So they could actually simply implement that keypad tab there as a tab instead of sitting directly above the
Speaking of
voicemail.
Google Dialer, do you still need to swipe 3 times to move to the next item in the call logs?
I don't know. I'm not a swiper, so I don't know what you're talking about, Sally.
But isn't that
Okay.
isn't that every Google app because they don't use actions?
Yeah. Google, that's Google.
I did want to ask if either Karine and Salas looked in their accessibility settings, and because I'm curious, I mentioned in my demo the Relumino outline thing. It feels like a very advanced feature, and I'm wondering if if it works on all Samsung devices or if it's
I
just.
can see it on my S23, but never used it.
Do you know if you have it on your A series phone, Karine?
Yes, it's there, but also I can't try it because, well, I will not be able to see it, but it's there.
Yeah.
No, no, I understand. I'm just wondering if it was there.
Yeah, it's
So
there,
that's
yeah.
good that it's there. They're
Yeah.
not reserving it for the higher end phones.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think like the A series that Karen has though is a higher version or
Yeah, it's
model
higher,
of the.
yeah.
I'm not sure that you'll find it on something like A11s or
No.
A02s and stuff like that. Definitely, you're not going to find that in there.
It's not on One UI 5, right?
No, it's
Right.
on 6.
So
No, it's not.
I can't test it on the A71 because it's still here, but it's still on 5.1 and it will not be upgraded to 6 actually.